Good day, my friends. I am Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed. Yesterday, I presented a video in which I wanted to highlight the position in which a public intellectual is put when society is polarized or two or more nations are being drawn into a major conflict. First of all, a public intellectual is one who is committed to finding out the truth. He or she is not bound by some nationalist commitment. He or she is willing to be critical of authority and those who are in power, but the whole intention is to convince people that we have to solve our problems, hopefully in a peaceful manner, so that all sides benefit from such a decision. And I began my YouTube by reciting a famous Urdu couplet, which I'll do for you and then I'll translate. जाहिद तंग नज़र ने मुझे काफिर जाना, जाहिद तंग नज़र ने मुझे काफिर जाना, और काफिर ये समझता है मुसलमान हूं मैं. The narrow-minded cleric or Muslim priest thinks that I am not a good Muslim, that I am outside the pale of Islam. And the non-believer thinks that whatever I do and say, at heart I am a committed Muslim. So that's the predicament of a public intellectual. Since society is already polarized and the parties in conflict, it can be two states, it can be two political parties. In the current situation, it is India and Pakistan which have been drawn towards a major conflict. So a public intellectual is committed to defending the truth, to presenting it to the public in the hope that he or she is not only providing information but also knowledge. When you get knowledge, you also know how to handle a situation intelligently and creatively. And hopefully on both the Indian and Pakistani side, there are sane people who can look at the current situation and decide for themselves what is the best course forward. It all started when the Pakistani Chief of Army Staff, General Asim Munir, made a most provocative speech to Pakistanis who had come from all over the world to listen to him, where he took recourse to the two-nation theory. The two-nation theory was a divisive approach during the freedom struggle or during the colonial period, in which Jinnah Sahib argued that Hindus and Muslims had nothing in common. And since they had nothing in common, in order to avoid civil war and strife between the two communities, India needed to be partitioned. Finally, the partition took place. More than 1 million Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs were killed. And that partition resulted in hatred, mistrust, distrust being generated on both sides. India and Pakistan have been drawn into 3 direct wars, half a war in Kargil in 1999. By that time, both India and Pakistan possessed nuclear weapons. And there are reports suggesting that the commanders on both sides were thinking of using them. President Bill Clinton, in an earlier report, when an attack took place on the Indian Parliament in 2002, he published a report in which he said that if India and Pakistan were to use all their nuclear weapons, then of the 1 billion population of India at that time, half a billion would be killed. And at that time, Pakistan had 170 million, 120 million will be wiped out. That was a terrible, terrible thing to happen if both sides were to resort to the nuclear arms. So, one reason after Asim Munir had made this speech, and in India there was a massive reaction against it, because you see, in India almost the same number of Muslims live as Indian citizens, and 3 4 days after Asim Munir had made this speech, there was a terrorist attack in Pahalgam in the Indian Kashmir, where about 6 7 terrorists came to a place where tourists, civilian tourists, were enjoying their holiday. They made the men take off their trousers to see if they were circumcised or not. If they were not circumcised and they were Hindus, they were shot dead. 27, 28 such people were killed, including one pony owner, the local man in Kashmir, Adil Hussain, who tried to save these Hindu tourists. In the Indian Kashmir, Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs came out in the streets protesting against the terrorist attacks. So that was a great manifestation of all communities condemning the terrorist act. What happened was that from the Indian side, it was alleged that the terrorists who had uh, carried out this horrific ordeal in Pahalgam had been sent by Pakistan directly to commit such an outrage. Pakistan, and then the Indian government said that we will avenge the crimes committed by these terrorists, and all effort will be made not to spare them. As a consequence, India also suspended the Indus Water Treaty, whereby the waters of 6 rivers, that of Indus, and 5 of the Punjab, which are tributaries of the Indus, their waters flow into the Indus, which had been agreed in 1960 and which gave 80% of water to Pakistan and 20 to India, or some say 70 to Pakistan and 30 to India, was suspended, not completely disowned. Pakistan reacted the next day by saying that the Shimla Agreement, whereby everything was to be resolved bilaterally, that is, between India and Pakistan, discussing among themselves, between themselves, what to do regarding their disputes, this we are also putting in abeyance, which is suspending it. And then we see that the temperatures have been rising all the time. I had the privilege to watch a discussion between Karan Thapar, a prominent Indian media personality, and from the Pakistani side, Najam Sethi, who is also a famous media personality, who has also held the position of a minister in the Punjab government. And he has this Friday Times, which is a major source of intellectual uh, uh, publications. I have published a few times. I do from time to time in the Friday Times as well. While uh, Current Harper presented the Indian position on what had happened and alleged that India had all the reason to believe that Pakistan was behind the terrorist attacks in Pahalgam. Najam Sethi said that Pakistan had not ordered these terrorist attacks, and the government of Pakistan was willing to uh, that an independent inquiry be undertaken, investigation be undertaken, may be established by the United Nations or whatever body, both sides agreeing, and they can look at the facts. If this is if it is established that that these terrorists were taking orders from Pakistan, then Pakistan had lost its case. But if that was not the case, then it could be just the terrorists taking their cue from the speech and attacking civilians. This was the first time civilians were attacked. But they had not been ordered by the government of Pakistan. This is what uh, Nazam Sethi argued. And both sides went further, arguing how a conflagration could uh, reach proportions which both sides should not be willing to bear. One thing important, uh, while Karan Thapar argued that in the past, when a terrorist attack took place in Bombay on the 26th of November 2008, uh, the government of Pakistan had agreed to a joint inquiry. Later on, Pakistan withdrew from it. And later on in Pathankot, 2015, a joint inquiry did take place. But then the Pakistani side went back and said that Pakistan was not involved. So how could India accept a new inquiry on this question? Najam Sethi said that it should be not India and Pakistan together inquiring, but an investigation undertaken by an independent body to which both could agree. Very interestingly, Najam Sethi agreed that in 2008, the terrorist attacks which were carried out in Bombay were ordered by the Lashkar-e-Taiba based in Pakistan. And the reason was that a team of the Friday Times had gone to the village of Ajmal Kasab, the only surviving terrorist who was captured by the Indians, and the team had talked to the father and mother of uh, Ajmal Kasab, and they admitted that their son was. They showed him his photo, and they agreed that that man was their son. Of course, in Pakistan, this is now denied that Ajmal Kasab was an Indian citizen and not a Pakistani. So there is a denial mode in Pakistan. But in this case, I'm glad Najam Sethi did own to the attack which took place in Bombay. Now, when all this was happening, and I had gone out and criticized Asim Munir for provoking this Hindu hatred among Pakistanis, he went on to say that we should, in our syllabus, keep reminding our generations of the fact that Hindus and Muslims are two separate nations, they have nothing in common, and that the Muslims had to pay a heavy price in blood to create Pakistan. So I had criticized General Asim Munir for uh, reviving a very divisive argument before the partition of India took place and and India came into being. And I said that there was no need, once Pakistan had come into being, to keep repeating the same ideology upon which the division had taken place. As a result, some people, some Pakistanis in people approached a friend of mine and said that Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed has spoken against Pakistan and is so. Uh, and my friend told them that he is a public intellectual and he has every right to take a critical view of what is going on in Pakistan. On the other hand, I had also made a video in which I showed that if this conflict between India and Pakistan were to escalate to a level where both sides were to use nuclear weapons, the devastation it would cause would be unimaginable, unprecedented. And we should do everything to ensure that this conflict doesn't grow out of hand. And then the Indian trolls started criticizing me that at heart you remain a Pakistani, you are a jihadi, that is a militant Muslim, and all that crap I got from the Indian side. And hence this verse that I repeated in Urdu, जाहिद तंग नज़र ने मुझे काफिर जाना और काफिर समझता है कि मुसलमान हूं मैं. So that is the tragedy of the public intellectual. He or she is trying to bring the facts before the public, warn them against a conflict which could destroy India and Pakistan for centuries to come, and that we should ensure that whatever India does uh, in response to the terrorist attack is not disproportionate. I also argued that we should try our best to keep the dialogue going on between Indians and Pakistanis, because politicians and people in power, for them, scoring points is important. Uh, One thing more, the Pakistanis pointed out to me that if you refer to Asim Munir's speech, then what about Narendra Modi during the election saying that in Rajasthan, where some women had assembled to hear him, that if you vote for the Congress party, that is the main opposition party, the Congress party will take away all your gold, their jewelry, and that gold will be spent on Muslims who keep on multiplying children, and your Mangal Sutra, the sacred thread about your marriage, will be broken or taken away. And so I think the difference is that that was an election ploy, whereas in the case of Asim Munir's speech, it was followed by the terrorist attack. And I am not saying that the terrorist attack was necessarily sanctioned by Pakistan. India alleges so and says that it has enough proof to establish that. But then I would argue, should India and Pakistan not agree to an independent investigation? I think it is worth considering. I will end here. I would urge all my friends to subscribe to my video, to my YouTube channel. It is easily done. On the right hand side in the corner, there is a subscribe button. You just press it, and my membership subscription increases. And that means my outreach also expands. Thank you very much. All the best for now.